Hello everybody, it's Zach here from realestatelicensewizard.com. Today's a super exciting day. We're going to talk about all the types of clauses that you need to know for the real estate exam. Of course, this video is going to be a summary of real estate exam clauses. I'm going to do a brief comparison of the important ones, and the best part, I'm going to go ahead and feature real practice exam questions that feature clauses that deal with them at the very end. So make sure to stay tuned for that as well. Originally, I wasn't sure if I needed to make this video or not, since I've gone pretty in depth in each individual important clause in my other videos. However, I figured what the heck, the more content, the better for you guys. Plus, this is going to give me an opportunity to compare and kind of reflect on all the clauses that we've gone over before. I'm going to go ahead and link all the full definition videos down below if you want more than the definitions I give today. Now, before I get started, make sure to click that like button and of course subscribe. That way you are as prepared as possible for when you have to take your exam. Anyways, let's just jump right into it. So for starters, for those of you who don't know, people who are new to the channel here, a clause just identifies a particular section of a real estate contract. In real estate, there are many different types of clauses and you are likely to see many of them on the real estate exam. So that's of course why we're talking about them today. So where do these clauses show up? Well, in real estate contracts, of course. Clauses are sections in deeds, mortgages, and more. It doesn't matter which state or where you live. If you are dealing with a real estate contract, odds are there's going to be a clause or two in it. Clauses are designed to highlight a specific action, topic, or insurance within a contract. So typically, they're super important. All right, now that you have a solid grasp of what a clause is, let's get into specifics. These are in no particular order, by the way. I just threw together a quick list. So the first one is the habendum clause. So the habendum clause is a statement in a contract that describes the rights and interests being given. It almost always begins with the words to have and to hold. Put simply, the habendum clause just tells the buyer or the leasee exactly what they're getting. Pretty self-explanatory. All right, the second one, the alienation clause. So the alienation clause is a provision in a mortgage or deed of trust signed with a lender that states that the borrower must pay the mortgage in full before the borrower can transfer the property. This just means the clause prevents new buyers taking over existing or previous mortgages. All right, the third one is the defeasance clause. So the defeasance clause is a required contract provision that ensures the title for the property is transferred to the buyer once the mortgage is paid off. Basically, it's the clause that specifies that the lender must surrender all rights to the property once the mortgage is paid off. Now, it's worth noting this provision only exists in certain states, but for more on that, check the video down below that we covered before on the full defeasance clause. All right, the fourth one, the acceleration clause. So this one is a contract provision that requires a borrower to repay all of an outstanding loan if upon breach of contract. So this basically means that if a borrower breaks any terms of their mortgage, the lender can demand an accelerated payment. All right, the fifth one. So, okay, here we go. This one's the prepayment penalty clause. This one is always a tongue twister. So the prepayment penalty clause states that a lender can penalize a borrower if a borrower pays off their mortgage much sooner than usual. Yes, that sounds weird, and it kind of is, but it means exactly what it sounds. If someone pays off their mortgage too soon, they can be slapped with a fee. And that's primarily just because, remember, these loan providers are giving out loans so that they can make money. But prepayment penalty clauses, if you want to watch a video more on that, of course, that's linked down below. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that one. So the next one is the subordination clause. So this one, the subordination clause is just a clause that establishes order of priorities of financial claims or liens if you're in a lien theory state. So this clause is seen commonly in refinancing, and it just establishes who gets paid first in case of a foreclosure. All right, next one is the release clause. Okay, So the release clause is contract provision, typically in a blanket mortgage. That's super important to remember. That allows for the freeing of all or part of a property from a claim through a proportional or full amount of the mortgage being paid off. This one's a little bit more confusing to understand. However, what's important to note, it's typically in a blanket mortgage. So when you're going to see this, basically, it's just people paying off individual properties so that they can own it outright instead of having to wait to the very end to own everything. But yeah, all it does is allow investors to pay off a specific portion of their blanket mortgage versus like all in one in a lump sum. So, what are the key takeaways of all of these? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that most of these clauses are some form of insurance for the banks or lenders. For example, the alienation clause, the acceleration clause, and prepayment penalty clause all protect the lenders in some way or another, usually by asking for some form of payment. Of course, it's worth mentioning these clauses are not the only clauses in real estate or real estate contracts, but the main ones that you're going to see on the real estate exam. So now for the best part, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some exam questions that have to deal with real estate clauses. Are you ready? Let's go. All right. So, which of the following real estate contract clauses is typically seen in blanket mortgages and allows for the freeing of all or part of a property from a claim through proportional or full amount of mortgage being paid? And that gives us 4 options. So as always, if you're new to this channel, we do questions all the time. And the way we do it is we pause if you want to read it over. If not, I just kind of jump right into the answer. So for this one, the answer is the release clause. So obviously we talked about this before. The release clause is a contract provision, typically in a blanket mortgage, that allows for the freeing of all property through proportional or full amount of mortgage being paid off. All right, next question. All right, so, here we go. The real estate contract clause that almost always begins with the word to have or to hold. Is it the alienation clause? Is it the addendum clause? Is it the acceleration clause? Or the prepayment penalty clause? So as always, go ahead and pause if you want. If not, just going to jump right into it. So this one is the addendum clause. So the addendum clause is a statement in a contract that describes the rights and interests being given. And it almost always begins with the words to have and to hold. All right, next question. Here's a little bit of a bigger one. Okay, so which of the following best describes the acceleration clause? And it gives us 4 options here. I'm going to go ahead and read through them all. Is it a provision in a mortgage or deed of trust signed with a lender that states that the borrower must pay the mortgage in full before the borrower can transfer the property? Is it a contract provision that requires a borrower to repay all of an outstanding loan if upon breach of a contract? Is it the statement that a lender can penalize a borrower if the borrower pays off the mortgage much sooner than usual? Or is it a contract provision in real estate that establishes the order of priorities of financial claims? So go ahead and pause if you want to read through that again. I know I kind of sped up there. But the correct answer is the second one. So it is a contract provision that requires a borrower to repay all of an outstanding loan if upon breach of contract. By definition, that's what the acceleration clause is. But yeah, that's some examples you're going to see on the real estate exam. Obviously, like those vary a bit. Those are just practice exam questions, things like that. But you'll notice it's very structured to the point where you have to kind of fully understand these terms. So when people talk about the importance of vocab for the real estate exam, the importance of definitions, we're not joking here. It's super important. So important. But yeah, so if you want to check out more real estate exam questions, guess what? We're the place for that. Go ahead and check out our website, realestatelicensewizard.com. Yeah, we've got so much resources on there for you to study. And of course, practice exam questions where we go over those definitions, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know about the different real estate contract clauses. If you do have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real estate exam related stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, I'm Zach from realestatelicensewizard.com. As always, make today magical.